I saw that.
There were 70 people.
I knew she was so good.
I knew Sandy.
I do too, but I think.
Because I heard
They had the
callers.
Oyster River Harmony
What does it say?
Chorus.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
There were eight of them, I guess. I missed it. So it was too late, but
That was supposedly the last one for this year, right?
like this season.
Yeah.
Huh?
Then they do, then she does salad and sandwich.
Her, after my
In
sister,
July.
my sister was sick, her
Well, that makes sense.
uncle and his
It's
mom.
not
You've read all that stuff
And
that
the
was dumped in
uncle,
email
Torben
stream.
called him
Well, I
home,
read
so
it
she
back in
started calling my
October.
mom.
Yeah,
And
that's
I told my
true.
mom,
That's
she
the
goes,
ones
no,
getting
fine.
fixed.
Yeah, Matt, so I had to read all of that.
So I got my mother personal.
It's easy to read because it's just numbers, there's no.
I can end the
what
make-
this is.
No material, yeah, no descriptive
Well,
justification.
we went to Morocco,
She's,
so.
okay with it, she's not.
Trying to before you went or after?
Please call me,
After,
you can say, oh, are you
after,
on
yeah.
Because last time,
I really enjoy the dates and the, you know, the olives and stuff in that and the spices that they have, so I'm trying to.
That's why it took so long when I was there.
I can't do spices too much.
Well, I can't do spicy
Yeah,
food.
so
He
it's
just said to me,
That
he said,
spice as a base one is to me much better than just this stupid hot stuff. I can't do lots of sugar. I can't use sugar and sugar, stay away from sugar, the honey is so good. So,
we've been talking
I have sugar in my tea in the morning.
We've been talking on Facebook.
huh?
I have sugar in my tea in the morning, that's
We
about
can
it.
manipulate it.
That'll
And
do
How
it.
you did the deliberative session with
Yeah,
chicken.
that is mostly sugar.
Why the
You know,
bill
mayonnaise.
changed. My niece said, "Well, can you
You know,
Yeah, it's true.
you start looking at the foods in the United States, and almost all of them have a huge dose of corn syrup for one thing, which is worse than the others, and then they have the fake sugars, which are even worse
There needs to be
than
police charges.
the cane sugars.
So they
Yeah.
would want something.
They mess up your system even
So I
more.
started
Sister was a real believer in
one of my rants, I said,
which
"Why
one?
haven't you used for stuff?"
Sugar substitute that you use. One of those.
The one out of the leaves, stevia or whatever it is, that's one, and then there's guava, and
No, she was using the real bad stuff.
oh, that stuff, yes, the
Yeah.
pink stuff.
The pink stuff.
Putting criminal charges up against that 16-year-old girl.
I tried stevia, I couldn't.
I can't stand the taste of
I
it.
didn't either. It just, it ruined my coffee
In the,
and my tea.
the Dimetapp, the stuff that people were using, the Pepco, 3 hours later, I would get migraines. I had migraines attached to anytime I got it. So people would give you that sugar-free jellos added to things and then I would, so I, aspartame,
Yes.
and so it got to the point where I just didn't enjoy going to, potlucks at all because everybody thought they were doing you a favor.
You never know what you'd
She had
have.
them for everything.
And I go home and that was like, on my case. The only time I've had migraines.
Be careful when you go to potlucks. You never know what's in there. Besides that, well, it's one good thing about the soup social, everything's,
That's fine, I don't really matter, I just want to, before I ask to do it, I just want to make sure
eat
that
things
it's,
for like any amount of time.
it's
2 hours is the
something that you would
maximum.
approve first.
Oh, you did, so. We write a letter.
Oh, okay.
You would get a
Oh,
copy.
okay.
When I start making my own,
That's approved.
Yes, I agree.
Rabi for vegetables, fruits and stuff, because they have so much sugar added to those.
Thank you.
It's much better without all the sugar once you get off of it.
Dan,
I just used up the last of my peaches that I put up last year. When I miss fruit whenever
I put my last pack a couple years ago of my plums that I had rendered down into the Moroccan
plum syrup.
plum syrup, so I just, and froze it in the bag,
We had a plum tree years ago, we had a Shiro, two of
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
They got that black knot, and we had to cut them down.
So I have the hero and the one that's
I haven't seen that.
4 o'clock meeting, come to order, please. Thursday, April 16th. Public comment, 3 minutes. Please.
Can we comment on the budget?
No,
My phone.
no, joking.
Okay, I don't think I do that.
Chris Barson, 56 Campground Road. I'm curious to know, I'm just looking at the numbers here, and I managed to see some of the video streams from previous meetings, discussion of what a new budget should look like, what a special meeting should look like. Was there ever a discussion about what the default budget would look like? Was there ever a discussion of that?
No, I don't think there's any formal discussion on the default budget.
Okay, so that was never articulated in the way that the proposed budget was.
That is correct.
Okay, my next question, I see the first line item is a town administrator salary, and I also see select board salary, and that's money going to the four of you, is that correct?
No. The Board of Selectmen gets a small stipend.
A stipend, but it says select board salary, $7,500 this year. Was there ever discussion of cutting either of those numbers?
No, none at this time.
Okay, so, and this is a legitimate question, it's not meant to be rhetorical. I'd like to know if any of you think that that's a conflict of interest, that you're preparing a budget that includes money that's going directly to you.
I don't think it's a conflict of interest whatsoever. We're basically volunteers, and that's basically a token fee at this time.
Okay, and may I ask from the other select board?
Well, that's total, so we each get $2,500.
I understand.
Never voted ourselves. I don't know when the last time I had a raise was.
Okay.
I don't know that I,
Actually, I think it went down.
yeah,
Maybe it did.
I'm just asking if you think it's a conflict of interest.
there's no, I don't think it's a conflict of interest.
Okay,
No, yeah, it's clearly not a conflict of interest to me.
okay.
It's in my actual job description that as town administrator, I have to prepare the budget.
Okay, but do you think it's a conflict of interest?
I do not. I've been involved in local government for over 30 years, and it's not a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you.
He also, I will say this for the town administrator, he doesn't decide his salary. So he put in, when he originally prepared the budget, he just put in the same salary he had the previous year. So any increase in that salary came from the three of us.
I understand.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure I.
But he's not asking, he doesn't write himself in a raise, unless we tell him to.
You can tell them to?
We asked for a raise across the board of 2.5%
Okay.
for cost of living.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else? for the
Excluding
public?
ourselves.
Thank you on that. Anybody else have a public comment? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Town Administrator, you have the floor.
Yeah, just to sort of set the stage, at the public hearing, we presented a revised budget of $5,942,930. Checking with the Municipal Association and DRA on Tuesday, they advised that if you have a select board work session like you're having, you should not add appropriations to that number. If you change your mind, you can go as low below that number as you would like, but you can't add money at this time. It does not stop residents from trying to add money at the deliberative session, but we should proceed with what was shown at the public hearing as the high water mark.
So could you repeat those numbers, please?
Yes, and that number was $5,942,930, and that reflected proposed cuts of $142,614. That did not include some of the cuts that the board has discussed, overtime, some other things. The board had discussed them, but there wasn't a motion made to take those numbers out of the line or to take just make a new bottom line number. So this is essentially the same sheet that was shown at Monday night.
Okay.
The only change is Karen Rossi found 2 lines that I hadn't highlighted. The numbers had been changed to be reduced, but I hadn't highlighted them, so I highlighted the EOC number and the library request, which I think may have been highlighted on Monday night, but that was a $3,000 reduction in the library line.
Select Board, how would you like to proceed?
I have a procedural question. Given the last meeting, there was some general agreement that personnel was going to be a central topic of the discussion as to how to reconcile the proposed with the default budget. And during that discussion, there may be sort of sensitive information associated with people who work for the town that may come up, and I'd like to just understand, like in one situation, will we have to go into private session for that discussion?
That is sort of a tricky area. You can go into non-public session to discuss setting compensation for an employee. You can, actually, I'll pull the. You can go into non-public to discuss the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of a public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charge against him or her, unless the employee affected has a right to a public meeting and requests that the meeting be open. You can also go in to discuss hiring of a potential public employee. Conceivably, 91A2C is matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of a person other than a member of your board. But there's really not a non-public for just talking about, for instance, cutting positions or.
But in our situation, I mean, like, we're not, we can, you know, if there's a position that is planned to be filled but not currently filled, then that discussion would then not require a non-public session. But if we're talking about positions that are currently filled, that we need to flag for dismissal, given the budget constraint, if indeed that's the case. It sounds like that would fall under the definition I just read.
I will leave that to the board to determine. You have to roll call vote to decide whether you agree with that or not.
Any thoughts from John or Rebecca?
I guess it depends on what you want to discuss. I guess that the safest thing to do would be to go into non-public, and then if we got in there and we were saying something that wasn't actually for non-public, we could.
I don't have any specific.
Oh, okay.
I just expect it to come up, so I just want to
Okay.
understand the rules.
If we start veering into territory, Andy, can you like wave or something?
Sure.
Alright.
And I would, depending on how big a cuts you're making tonight, if you're just revising what your revised budget is going to be, you might not get to that point. Obviously, if the vote reverts back to the default budget again, then you would definitely need to have that discussion.
Okay. Can we review, can I ask that we review the additional line items that Rebecca had identified? I want to say on the 6th, when you kind of went through, so I can make sure that my files reflect that, and so we get the updated number that's higher than the 142.
Well, we had we've discussed a couple of times the non-essential overtime.
Sure.
So we can certainly look at those. That was something I flagged. So we have the, I believe that, and please tell me if I include something that is essential, the Board of Selectmen overtime line.
Right at 4,000.
That's currently at 4,000. It was originally at 5.
Okay.
It's like the third thing down.
Right.
So I guess the question is, do we need that or can we get rid of it?
Let's see, the town clerk, tax collector did not have any overtime. Financial administration had $400 of overtime. That
Which I
hasn't
think you
been
got.
spent in the last year.
Where's the financial administration? Not finding it.
That would be actually, we'd zeroed that out already.
Yeah, I think you already got rid of that.
Looking at the wrong line. So the next overtime line would be the planning and zoning, but that has been reduced to $750, but I know that the planning and zoning director had.
I think she said get rid of it, so
Yeah.
we can definitely get rid of that.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
The planning and zoning under planning, it's page 3,
All right.
that overtime line,
Oh, P and Z all the time, okay. So-
and go to 0.
Actually, 1.
1,
One.
sorry, please, 1, yes, apologies.
There's no overtime under government building.
No. I would hope
Cemetery under general. You've got overtime in the police department.
Right, but I believe they use that for paying people so other people can take their time off. Yes?
Probably, I believe the police chief is here.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Ike?
And you have a considerable amount of overtime in the fire department.
Yes, which is unfortunate, but
Mhm.
that also,
The building inspector has no overtime. In the highway, you have a significant amount of overtime.
how much of that is plowing?
20,
Pretty much
probably
all of it.
most of it.
All of it? Okay, then I think we have to keep that too then. So I guess the only one we haven't decided about was the Board of Selectmen overtime.
Well, you have, you've got transfer station overtime as well, the amount of $2,500.
That's essentially in there for plowing to, for them to
Also,
come in early to get the dump open.
also plowing, okay.
And that's really it.
Okay. So I guess the question is, do we need the Board of Selectmen overtime?
What is that?
That is the assistant administrator.
Oh, okay.
It's primarily used for attendance at meetings that need minutes and during budget preparation season.
Okay. Let's back burner it, I think. What do you guys think?
I don't know, I've expressed my thoughts about it multiple times.
Okay.
I don't know, I just look at it, this as, you know, that means Denise is not taking overtime, you're gonna have to go ahead and take all the minutes and
Well,
everything.
don't we take the minutes from the video? I
You
mean,
could have Otter do it or something.
Or can we look at a coming in late?
Oh, you mean change my hours?
That's what I do.
Flex time or comp
Yeah,
time,
compensation time, whatever they call it.
which comp time is essentially the same as overtime, because each of these we'd have to
Right,
pay
because
it.
they pay
but
it out,
flex-
so no,
flex
I meant
time
more
is
like
different.
shifting hours, right? Like, we already have the ones where we get out early on Friday, or you guys get out early on Friday.
And that
So
is
you
made
can
up
stay late on
by being
Monday.
late on Monday, and we work till the other offices close at 4 o'clock, and we stay till 4:30.
So can we
Tuesday,
shift some of that
Thursday.
time so that it doesn't have to be overtime? Can we take away some of her stuff so she has time to shift time?
If the money's gone, we'll have to.
I think, I mean, to me, you know, anything that's like less than $5,000, I think we can, at this stage, like, we can kind of flag it and then see. But if our goal is to like discuss what it would take to meet the default budget,
Mhm.
That's a whole.
right, and like, and then use that as a, you know, as sort of like a, you know, what we're sort of working towards at this meeting, then, you know, a couple grand here or there isn't gonna do the trick, right? We're gonna have to look at like bigger numbers.
And what I really need the board to work towards tonight is a revised number that we can put on the warrant that I have to post in the next few days.
But I think to me, like, just, you know, I spent some time today thinking about it, looking through what I had, and I think to me, it's helpful to understand, like, what we would have to do to meet the default, and then, you know, and then evaluate the, you know, the language of the warrant article from that, right? Because then, like, you can get a sense of like, well, how painful, or what, you know, another question I have for all of these is like, what, sometimes like, they engender other costs, right? You know, if you, you know, we're not like employing too many people in town, right? So like, I think to get a sense of the kind of what you're giving up first, and then, you know, if it turns out to be something that we can't countenance, walk it back and then use that as a way to fill in the warrant. I wonder what others think.
Let me just throw something out here. I've been thinking out of a more broader view sometimes. If we're trying to get the default budget, why don't we just get the default budget? I know what you're saying, is you want to convince the public that we have to give up all of this to get to the default budget.
Right.
So it's,
Well, I think, our discussion the other night, I was hoping that we'd be able to get into a little more detail about kind of what were the mechanics of like reaching the default budget, what it would really mean. And I don't think we really got there. And so just for me not having gone through the budget process with you in the fall, I'd like to have a clearer understanding of what that would entail. That's not to say that I'm advocating for just going right to the default budget without, but I think it's something I have to understand in order to participate in this meaningfully.
I have a couple of generic questions I'd like to ask. Actually, I want to ask the fire chief. Are you here?
Yes, he's here.
I remember a while back, maybe it's not in here anymore, but used to pay firefighters or stay at home like $25,000 or something a year. Is it still in the budget? So that part's gone when you went to full-time firefighters?
Yeah, when we went to 24/7, we got rid of that because there was only like 2 people actually doing it. And they were just getting burnt out.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep.
Appreciate it, thank you very much. Town administrator, we have some revolving accounts, don't we? Police and fire?
We have the special duty account for the police department, yes, that's primarily been used to buy equipment.
What's it sitting at?
That, I do not have that number with me this evening. I would suspect that it's in the neighborhood of $64,000, $65,000.
Right.
Sir, please.
Tom's got it. It has
I
gone
was
up.
hoping he'd raise his hand.
It has gone up much.
I don't know the total, but that, for the last 5 cruisers, police cruisers, they haven't been in our budget. They've been, that's what we've used to purchase cruisers. Supplement anything from grants that we got. We've been able to, fortunately, dip into that and not have to come back and ask for more money in the budget. So, and right now, we'll need a car next year. So that's what we're working towards now.
The only other revolving account we have that had money in it would be recreation, and
That will be between the family fun night
It's gonna be
and the
gone.
activities we've already got earmarked. That'll pretty much zero out.
Pretty much everything else is capital reserve, which requires a specific
Yes.
identified purpose.
Karen's opinion of it.
The rec revolving fund is where fees from the renting of the pavilion that don't get returned, renting of the fields go into, the exercise class money, that goes into the rec revolving fund. And the rec revolving fund pays what the fitness instructor gets paid for out of there. So,
I agree, we need to know what the default budget looks like. I don't know that we can do that today, because I'm not sure Andy's prepared to give us these numbers. I think we had a possibility of someone who was leaving a position. This is where I think the line is, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it would seem.
And so maybe find out how much that would save us if they were not replaced.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly, if that position was not replaced, the request in the budget is a little over $59,000 with health insurance, retirement, FICA. You'd be at a little over $100,000.
Just that one person?
Yep.
Are you talking about the same person?
It could be, there was also discussion of similar employee that, not at the same pay grade, that the total would be $74,817.
Okay. Now I don't know what the second person is, so now I'm That's funny, I've lost the train.
I think the first number that I gave you was for what you had discussed, although I think there was some nuance to that. There had been discussion about retiring, but returning as a part-time employee, that type of thing, so.
So I guess we need a closer number on that, and then if that person's not replaced, what doesn't stay open? What does that do to the hours and such? So we can have an idea of if that's something we want to do, and then we have a couple of open positions right now. So if we didn't fill them with a permanent person, but with fill-in people, what is the difference there?
So I'm aware of from the police budget request that one of those is at the police, is that correct?
That was already calculated out of the budget before we did it.
Can I ask what the general assistance, rent assistance budget line is?
Sure, and that, you can make that as small as you like, but by state law, if people qualify, we have to pay it, so.
What, can you just describe what state law, what was it for?
I can't give you the exact RSA, but people in need of assistance, fuel, rent, mortgage payments, we are obligated to pay if they meet the criteria.
Okay.
Let me get up to, we had carried it at a lower number for a number of years, and the last few years it had been hit pretty hard.
So where, I mean,
It's a number that we guess at and try to put in there, but we have to pay whatever we end up paying. So it could even be double that, unfortunately.
RSA 165?
One of the ways that we manage the costs for welfare administration is, unlike most towns, we do not have an on-site welfare director. We contract with a welfare director that represents multiple towns, I think 7 at this point, and for the last 5 years, she has charged us a flat fee of $5,000 with some incidentals around that to determine the legal eligibility of applicants and handle basically contested claims and handle rent vouchers. And I mentioned she is offset in large part by the health officer, who is also the planning and zoning administrator, and the assistant town administrator. So typically, the assistant town administrator handles people as they come in.
This is the kind of juicy information I need. It looks like it's RSA 165. Don't hold me to that, but.
Yeah, there's a series of statutes that outline what you have to provide. We also work closely with the community church and some other social organizations, although one of the numbers on the cutting list now are some of the social agencies that we rely on to assist.
So we had that discussion earlier on about cutting back on the 50,000. But times are rough all over the place. But no matter what, we have to cover it if they're here.
Yeah.
So it's like anything else, you can play the game, you can say, we'll leave some money in there, we'll have plenty of money to cover, at least we think we will, or take the risk and cut it back, and then if it goes over the amount that's left, we still have to cover that cost somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll have to take it out someplace else.
I mean, based on the limited information we have, it seems like the most you could cut from it is probably 10 grand. Even that might be a stretch.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Love an unfunded obligation.
Unfortunately, that's pulled over from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah?
If you look at some of the dates on the enabling legislation for the modern statutes, that's from before we were the United States.
Oh, wow.
We're not obligated to keep a poor farm or a poor house anymore, but we still are obligated to follow the welfare code.
We did have a poor farm, didn't we, in the know, as I look over the budget, we're all coming down to the same thing, it's always dealing with personnel. There's no way we're gonna get, we can keep chopping little pieces here and there, but it's never gonna get down to where the whole budget is at that point. Unless we take revenge on some of these other ones we discussed, is probably not a good idea. That's the reason I brought up the special duty one, it takes care of itself, it pays for a car. It's a beautiful way of handling it, so it's not inside the budget.
Yeah.
And the recreation one as well, which looks pretty good in that sense, but there's nothing else left at this point. So I do have a question for Steve, you here?
Yeah.
I got a pretty good feeling about fire department, pretty good feeling in police. If you were to lose a person, what would you do?
Out of which department?
All right, I'm leaving the floor open.
You lose one at the transfer station, you're probably closing it and reducing the hours a lot. You lose a highway guy, we're not gonna be able to plow. Like every full-timer's in a truck in the winter. So it severely limits our plowing. Plus hauling trash and everything else that we do. Like it'd cripple. Transfer station would be the better one to go, unfortunately.
I'm just trying to get a sense, as Matt needs to hear some of that, I don't think he's heard it before.
No, I mean, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage here, because a lot of this wasn't written down in the context, as, I've learned a lot from you so far, but I'm kind of in the dark for some of this. Can we hear from the others as well?
Absolutely.
Just that
Archie?
same question?
If you lose somebody, then please do.
If we were to lose a full-timer, then I'm gonna have to try and obviously backfill with part-timers, which right now depends on the month and depends on all the part-timer schedules. So sometimes the part-timers are covering the part-time slot because I don't have enough people. Within the last 3 to 6 months, we've hired another 6 part-timers to try and fill some of those vacancies that we've had. Because I know that gets into the overtime and stuff, but I mean, from our standpoint, from the fire department, we're running a shift with 2 people. Durham has 6 and Rochester has 12. We all go to the same calls, so it's not like our calls are any different than those communities. We only have 2 people, so.
Thank you.
I'll go.
Wow.
So if you cut from my department, you cut Bill, which is building inspector, then we don't have one. Or I'm the only planning zoning health officer, so, if you cut from us, you don't have a building inspector or planning zoning and health officer.
Thank you.
Sorry. Now you can go.
Tried to set the stage for you, Tom.
So, for about a little over a 3-year period, we were down by almost 50% of our staff. And we taxed the people that we have and who stayed a lot, including me. I was working 60 hours a week, covering shifts by myself as a salaried employee. I'm not gonna go through that again. That was hell. And if we lose another person, there will be several through the door behind them, because they're not gonna wanna do that again. It's difficult enough out there when you have 2 people on, as busy as we are. We handle upwards of 11,000 calls a year. And I don't like people being by themselves, so I work the day shift by myself to have extra coverage on at night. And if we start losing people, that means somebody's gotta work by themselves. Almost every department around us pays significantly more than we do. They'd be gone. Because Barrington has 15 officers. They could go work for Barrington, make more money, always be on with somebody, never be working by themselves. So we're hanging by a shoestring here, keeping the people that we have. They're here, most of them are here primarily because of the health insurance. The benefits are very good for this town. So they sacrifice the pay to get that. But if we start going backwards, we're still down an officer, and the morale's coming up because we're starting to be able to fill positions. If we start going backwards, I think there'd be a mass exodus.
Okay, that's really helpful. And so just to be clear, the $65,000 request that was in your original budget request was not included in the budget we've been discussing, even the proposed? Okay.
That was taken out.
Taken out from the ABC right from the beginning.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thank you. I wish the library were here, that's sort of like the last.
The chairman of the
Oh,
trustees is.
yeah. Okay.
You asked me to receive.
Yeah, I'd love to just hear about, you know, what the situation would be for the library if you had to lose a full-time equivalent.
The changes in the budget that were suggested was $3,000 that would entitle or include decrease in programming and in purchasing of books. And we feel that that's really a good fit for us, and we were hoping that it would stay that way. As far as losing a full-time person, it would be definitely difficult, very difficult. And we do have substitutes that we could have less time for them, but as far as full-time people, we'd like to stay as we are.
But what would, I mean, give me a sense of what the repercussions would be if you were to lose a full-time person.
Well, first of all, it would be difficult to choose who it would be. It would be, yes, seniority. I don't know. We would, as the trustees board, we would have to look at that and go from there.
So would it mean decreased hours, decreased programming, decreased?
Yes, it would probably be both, and the programming itself would be affected, especially in certain adult populations and with the children. It would affect those things.
I'll point out too, just from my own experience, that a lot of families really rely on the library for daycare, or for, you know, watching their kids in the hours between the end of school and when parents can pick them up, and so that for a lot of families in town would be pretty devastating to not have that. Okay, thanks.
On the administration side, I don't see a lot of room for getting rid of people. We've got 2 part-timers in the town clerk's office right now. One of those part-timers will be going away 30 to 45 days. That's just sort of slop over for training purposes, which will leave us with 1 full-time and an assistant. And I think you really can't run that office with just the town clerk. Under the personnel administration and finance on my side, a couple of 3 years ago, when the finance director wanted to retire, I took the opportunity not to hire another finance director, and instead to hire a bookkeeper and supplement the bookkeeper with some contracted services from Municipal Resources Inc. Last year we spent about $15,000 on that, which was far cheaper than a part-time or a full-time employee, certainly. I will say that when I hired the bookkeeper, the candidate that accepted that job was the only candidate willing to accept that job for less than $75,000, and that was 2 years ago, over 2 years ago now. So, the assistant TA functions as much more than the assistant TA, as you heard me say before. I use her as an on-site welfare person in large part. She's also the on-site assessing. We don't have an assessing clerk in Lee. We contract for service that's 1 day a week, but most of that 1 day a week is in the field doing pickups and revaluations. So anytime during the week that somebody comes in with an assessing question, or a veteran's credit, or an elderly credit, or that sort of thing, that falls to the assistant TA. I think that those positions are actually fairly bare bones, and I would just reiterate that we're missing some other positions that small towns frequently carry, like an assessing clerk, like a welfare officer that works between 28 and 32 hours a week.
To me, like the pattern that is across all of this is that our purchasing power just isn't, I mean, like we can't control the regional labor market, right? I mean, people cost what they cost, and it seems like what scares me is the idea that like, no, if we target any of the departments for personnel reduction, like we'll save the money, but we'll create a situation, like an untenable situation where other people walk out the door and there's nothing we can do to retain them. I mean, we're already like, on thin ice. Honestly, it's partially what I, although I didn't have the words, was trying to get across earlier this week. To just, what are you willing to do without? What is the town willing to do without? Because if by making a cut to any department where, taking out the block from under the big Jenga tower and any of these places, then.
Well, I guess that's the explanation that has to go along with it. Obviously, what was it, 142 cut, and then you said we probably picked, I think it might be up to 150,000 maybe,
Yeah.
from what we're talking about. So we're never really gonna get to the default budget. So if I looked at it just from my point of view, nothing personal against anybody at this point. Fire has struggled, police has struggled. Steve has done a great job, transfer and highway, trying to build that. But there's opportunity in the transfer station to take out a full-time position. But I want to bring that forth to the public to let them know, reduced hours, changes in the flow, it had dramatic effects. Tom.
Something else that's overlooked, when you have an experience, I'm not just gonna speak for the police department. When you have an experienced officer, 3, 4, 5 years, let's say, it's not just the salary of that officer, it's how much training we have invested in that officer. It's the knowledge that they have gained of the town, the roads, the neighborhoods, the residents, the quirks. Well, that car's not usually there on a Thursday night, something might be up. That you can't replace. You eliminate that position for now, and maybe a year or two later, we've got the $60,000, let's replace this officer. It's not just that $60,000, it's the equipment, the uniforms, they're up to $1,100 for our vests, bulletproof vests. They are measured specific per officer. It's all those things that, are behind the scenes that add up. And if you lose somebody, we've got a closet full of, I went to the Velcro name tags, so we used to embroider them on. Well, you get rid of John Smith and you hire Bob Davis, well, that shirt's not gonna work for him. So, there are a lot of other expenses behind the scenes that people don't see when you lose people and then you have to rehire.
It's an important reminder that we're talking about people, right? They're not just a budget line.
So that's where I am at this point. I don't think we could keep zapping away at this thing.
Well, is there any other things we can zap, so we can go to the town and be like, we're trying to meet you halfway. At this point, we're losing people, which means you're losing things.
You'd have to lose some personnel, yeah.
Yeah, you're losing the library being open as much as it is, you're losing the dump being open, you're losing
Exactly.
health, safety. So is there any other low-hanging fruit we can take that doesn't do that? So we can get this number finalized, and then we can ask Andy to get the default budget. Maybe we can see about the person retiring, see about the unfilled positions, and see what the differential is.
I guess we go through section by section.
Okay.
So let's start off with general government executive. Already talked about the overtime there, right? And what did you come up with a figure?
And right now it's at 4,000. The question is, do we need it, do we not need it? Can we get rid of it? Lower it, something.
I would say as department head, it's well used and not used right now. That's up to the board.
Since the actual use was what, 25 is 4,414. We're at 2,800, right?
Surprise here, yes, that's what it says.
Matt, you have a comment?
If we're gonna go through, like, I think we should tick off anything that even kind of works, right? And then, so then we can see, like, the maximum possible that we can, you know what I mean? It seems like that's where we're at, and then sort of pare back if necessary, right? What I'm missing is like a sense of the whole,
So Rebecca, you're recommending $0. $1.
$1, sure.
Okay, let's go with $1.
I also am happy to go with my salary. Doesn't really do anything. I don't really care.
Election registration and vital statistics.
Don't think there's much there. The only line we had there was equipment, and that was, based for some election equipment that had already been purchased, so we dropped it to 3,000.
I said the other thing, if there's any equipment or purchases we can put off too. Obviously not this one, because I believe that 3,000 is the programming of the
Yes,
equipment, not the
and,
buying of equipment.
And that is pretty much exactly what it's going to cost us, and it's required.
Town clerk tax collector.
Did you reduce the salary of the select board? I
I
just
said
heard
it.
her say.
I did not.
Okay.
Rebecca said it.
Yeah, it's not important to me either, but I don't wanna speak for the group.
No, I don't think it's the way to go, because it happens to be this group is very professional in that sense, but you might get other people down the road.
That's a good.
That was the issue that we dealt with before.
Where?
Town clerk tax collector. You dropped that down to 5,000, the deputy, right?
How has there not been any postage spent yet? Is this number right?
It's broken out. We have postage in a couple of places, and then
One place. It's in
it's
ours.
my budget, and we have codes in the postage meter, and at the end of the year, it's.
Okay, so it's gonna get
broken out and
moved into
reapplied.
there, so
Right.
we're gonna use that. Okay, that's fine then.
Financial administration. You already cut out conferences and travel, I guess.
We did. Most of the rest of that is required. Obviously, if, that's personnel administration.
Computer services, that's like conventional IT, the website.
It is, we contract, so we don't have to have an IT person in town, and that's contracted through Back Bay. I shouldn't say this online because Back Bay is likely to see the broadcast, but I have done some tentative research and couldn't begin to touch that number. It hasn't changed for probably 9 years.
We should leave it alone. Let's see, reevaluation of property, you wanna get rid of that one?
The town voted not to fund it last year, so
Reevaluation.
we are required by the state to do it every 5th year.
Yeah, and legal expenses.
That you can certainly cut, it's a crapshoot.
Isn't there, wait a second, where's the reevaluation? Oh, it's the
Second
whole, it's a
page.
whole section, but are we paying for all of that out of the trust fund?
We have a capital reserve fund for revaluation.
So. Is that what this is?
It's assessing.
No, that's assessing.
Okay,
It's
so this
definitely
is
reevaluation.
not the reevaluation.
It's not
Okay.
reevaluation, sorry, it's assessing.
Yes.
This is assessing. Assessing.
And that's a con,
And that's MRI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that basically go to Mr. Marsh, or is that?
we have a combination of people. Sean is our, just week to week, in on Monday to do pickups. For a minute. Building permits, that sort of thing, checks whether the work is completed and adds it to the tax rolls. Scott Marsh is his supervisor, who's probably in once a month to do some of the more complex things. And right now, we have a full team from MRI in the assessing department because we're about a third of the way into the revaluation process.
Right,
for
but
our
that's
single
separate from
family.
these numbers, none of that's included in this.
Not,
Okay, so make sure
okay.
we're paying
So
for that.
back to the legal fees again. You propose to cut it down to $10,000, right?
Right, I know of a couple of instances that, could come into play, but whether they do or not is anyone's guess.
Well, if it came to play, we can always use a contingency, right?
We could.
So you wanna play a game?
Not really,
Not really.
not with that, not with what things are happening, no.
I'm not a gambler, John.
Okay. I would've whacked it off, but that's a different person, I'll let it go. Personal administration?
The only thing that I could really change here, and make sure that Karen's not throwing anything at me. Obviously, could make changes to the benefit plans that we offer employees.
Right, but then we're likely to lose those employees that we're not paying fair market value.
I think there's a fair chance that you would lose people.
I'll say that's my sense. I've explored that more than anything.
Yeah, the rest of it, retirement, unemployment, workers' comp, those are things that I have to pay.
You have to pay.
Background check, we have to do when we hire new employees, particularly depending on the department. We're required to do that. The things we could get rid of, we have $500 for special awards and flowers, which Rebecca had suggested getting rid of, and $350 for food. These have been used in the past to recognize community members such as Volunteer of the Year.
Okay, so do you wanna keep them or let them go? I understand it's $850, I fully recognize that. But it's $850 more,
Okay,
that's not someone's job,
So do you want to?
zip it.
get rid of it.
Well, there's the 850 for the elections meals too. We could, I mean, not that I want that to go, but I mean,
I mean, we have to.
if we're cutting it from here.
So the election meals, you have people working from like 6 AM to 10 PM.
Yeah,
They're all
Can I
volunteers.
speak on that?
Yeah.
So I took that over several years ago, and they used to do takeout. I do that as cheap as possible. They get peanuts, it's a long day. I understand what you're saying, I heard somebody say we could do potluck. Potluck would be great, but nobody's gonna do it.
Yeah.
So we have to feed them. They're there from 5:45 in the morning till 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's a long day for peanuts too. So, and I do it, I go to Market Basket, I buy Panera soup in a jar, I put it in a crock pot. I get, lunch meat, I do it as inexpensive as possible. Yeah. I'm a taxpayer, I'm all for saving money, but
I agree with Karen. I think we can get rid of the special food, no more special food, sorry. No more volunteer of the year. I'll make a cake, it'll be free.
There you
How
go.
about that?
That's right, you make
It'll be
cake. I
better.
like your cake.
right, so we'll get rid of special awards and food meetings.
Mhm. Planning, and zoning.
Yeah, we already got rid of the, are you writing this down or doing it as?
you can, we talked at 2 meetings ago about cutting some of our legal.
Oh, yeah.
This year, it's been great so far. So my department covers any land use legal issues. We just heard some great news tonight that we can use some of the money from the trust fund to do some work that we've been working on, which is fantastic. If I can go to the contingency fund if needed, it looks like so far this year I'm only at 2,800, which is great. If we can go to the contingency fund if need be, there is a couple of things smoldering out there, but hopefully, if you wanna go down to 5,000, 7,000, if I can go to the contingency fund, if need be.
And that's fine.
Okay, let's do it at 5,000, thank you, Carol.
Can someone explain legal notices and advertising?
Yep, so when you go before the planning board and the zoning board,
Oh, you have to, yeah.
you have to put it in the paper, and that's a reimbursable expense. So I bill the applicant a flat fee to put it in the paper, and then that money goes into the general fund. So it's not a revolving fund, we have to raise and appropriate it, but we do get it back.
Okay.
But it doesn't show up,
Correct, it doesn't show up on your paper.
so you gotta pay up front. In
Yep.
other words. Government buildings,
All right, we already cut maintenance.
yeah, I saw that one, yeah.
Not sure why I think it might come off of there.
I think it'd be cool is if we could rent the old Rite Aid. For offices to like the Market Basket Plaza.
Done out there.
Epsom did that for a number of years in their plaza. I don't know if it would be cheaper than the deal with
Yeah, sure.
I just
Mr.
looked
Daly
at that
right
building,
now.
the empty, right, the empty space, and thinking, wow, it'd be really nice to be able to register my car and buy
Back has that atmosphere of letting it sit for a long time to get what they want.
Yeah, as, actually, my understanding is it's their business model
Yeah.
to, yeah, rely on the rent from those.
Just in regard to the daily rent,
Yeah,
I haven't heard from Mr. Daly recently, but there is a potential that the building we're in right now could come up for sale. He has assured me that he will give me notification as soon as that's a possibility, with some kind of price guidelines. If that becomes available at a reasonable price, we have capital reserve fund money that potentially could be used for that, and that rent could go away.
okay.
The insurance would go up, but
To be clear, we're talking about building a new town hall.
No,
no,
buying the daily.
buying the one we're in now, as opposed to renting it.
Oh, I see.
Because we're paying, we're gonna pay $62,700 next year to rent that building, so. And we pay for just about everything that goes along with that. That was a bare bones lease, so we're on utilities, the repairs, the power, the fuel. In addition to that.
Cemeteries? Not much in cemeteries.
Can I ask about the utility, the public safety for this building, the heat and electricity for this building? I mean, are we like, are there thermostats with setbacks and, you know, light timers and stuff in the building?
There are, there's been at least one, if not multiple, energy audits of this building. As you can see, we've got the thermostats caged, the lights are on timers. Probably the biggest thing that has saved energy in this building was 3 years ago, we used ARPA funds combined with a grant from New Hampshire Electric Co-op to do a complete re-installation of the attic and upper portion of the building, which made an immediate difference the following winter in what we paid for fuel.
And, yeah, when did that take place?
That was probably a little over 2 years ago,
Okay,
3 years ago.
so they won't come back, you know, they won't incent anything else. So only 2 years.
I know you changed all the lights too, I remember that, right?
Yes, the lights have been changed. As you know, these lights are on an automatic timer. If we don't move enough, they'll go off.
All right. Cemeteries, I don't see much in cemeteries. Insurance, that's just basic insurance, really. Property insurance.
That is, yes, that's our property and casualty package that we have, and we do that through Primex, which is far and away the cheapest option for municipalities in New Hampshire.
Other general government, I guess we whack most of that, huh?
Is there a reason the police landline, is it like nothing so far this year? Is it just not, hasn't been distributed correctly yet, or did they get rid of their landlines?
Chief?
That I don't know, that could be.
That number doesn't seem right, assuming that things doesn't
Let's
seem
get the
right.
landline.
Yeah, 214 is supposed to, I would suspect that some of the money has been misclassified and expended.
Yeah, I think that's not correct.
Okay,
That was probably the year-to-date when they started the budget
Yeah.
process.
year to date,
Because we've cut that, we don't have a fax line anymore.
Okay.
We do everything through the internet.
So is
And
2122 the right way, the right number?
I would have to check.
Okay, because it looks like in 25 it was only 15, so I was just curious if it was misclassified and that's someplace else, or this hasn't been broken out yet?
A lot of that stuff we split with the fire department as well. So half of it comes out of my budget and half of it comes out of Scott's budget, like the consolidated bill, because we upgraded the lines rather than a hard line.
Yeah, and that's really low too.
Yeah.
The fire landlines are at
Yeah, ours are
683.
683, so that's
So-
not great.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we need to check on those.
but we believe that the right value is the 2,000.
2,000 something.
Yeah, because last year we were 1,900 at a 2,000.
But last year the police were only 15?
Yeah.
Well, how about this, we leave it as is, but Andy, you double check those numbers, and if they are lower, can you
Yep, we
lower
can-
them?
Anything that we find lower, after we get the number, we can take out at delivery
Okay,
session.
well, let's make a note of that, and then we can take it out. I was curious if the distance amount doesn't
Yeah, we
matter.
have some, they have lines still primarily for alarming.
Yeah, no, I understand we need them, I just, the number didn't make sense.
So we're on police, or still on police?
I don't see anything else
I
that
don't
can
know.
line up.
The dispatch, we can't do anything with that.
I have a couple questions about what the, I'm sorry to keep asking you,
No.
but
Please.
what the lines represent. So a lot of the first page here is self-explanatory. Lease agreements and contracts, what is that?
Well,
Which department?
The police
Police.
lease agreements and contracts.
That is our computer operating system. Comes out of there. When we had Kalia, some would come out of there. Anything that we have to enter a lease, tasers are on a lease program.
Okay,
So we have a yearly payment for those. Anything that we enter into a lease to the copier machine, things like that.
oh, okay, all right, very good. Let me see, supplies, is $5,000 for supplies?
Mhm.
What sort of?
That anything comes under that, the water, because we can't drink the water here. Folders, file folders, manila envelopes,
Okay,
anything, reams of paper, anything we need for our day-to-day business.
and training?
That's to train the officers. We're required minimum of 24 hours a year, minimum.
Okay.
And then any specialty training, that all comes, it used to be you could send somebody to a class for $195. Now that class is $595.
Okay. And there's 20 grand for new equipment?
So that used to be 45,000.
Yep.
And a number of years ago, when we're in this position, and I used to buy the police cruiser out of that, I cut that back $25,000. So that's, if something breaks, I have to replace it. And like I said, we've been buying the car out of the special duty line.
Right, okay.
And under that new equipment, when you look at the fiscal year '25 actual, that car showed on that line as purchased there, but that was offset by revenue from the town was not really over budget by $54,683.
Okay.
good, I'm glad.
Yeah, so am I.
I am glad.
Put on your page today. All right,
So police department, police safety, dispatch, ambulance, we got to keep, fire department.
push the fire department.
Dues and subscriptions, what is that?
We have dues with Seacoast Chiefs, and that's for like the hazmat team in the area, and then just to pay the dues to be part of that membership. That is going up every year because they reevaluated the hazmat team and how they do that. So that's a couple thousand, I think it's 3,500. Subscriptions, we have Iron Responding, which is the computer program that we use in the fire trucks. And then we have the work, which is our scheduling program that we use.
Right, okay. And, let me see, PPE is in there, diesel,
Let's hope diesel's gonna be enough.
oh, that's, yeah, I mean, that's a ticking time bomb. And, that new equipment, we have 10,000 in there, what is that, what would that be?
Same thing as PD, so if anything, any of our equipment breaks, then we'll purchase it through that. If
So-
axes break, and ladders, anything like that.
So it seems like kind of like insurance,
Yeah.
I guess, okay.
Yeah, and like Tom said years ago, that was way more than 10,000, we dropped it in a couple of years.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's all the questions.
Building inspector, pretty straightforward there. Emergency management.
Did cut the supply line there.
Yes, we did.
It's not highlighted, is that one of the ones that Karen picked up?
Yes, I'm sorry, I highlighted it for the projection because Karen caught it, but it was not on the original sheet you had.
All right.
Okay,
Highway administration.
Jeez, that salt and sand is killer, huh?
That is probably not gonna get any better,
Not any
given
better.
world economics and where sand, or where salt comes from is the big driver there.
We're not gonna win on that one.
Morocco or something?
Yeah.
Seems like a business opportunity.
we're using it for.
And Steve can attest to, salt was in very short supply this winter.
Yeah.
Municipalities are actually fighting over who was gonna get their shipments.
You can take the 20 out of Parks and Grounds that we added.
Parks and grounds maintenance.
That was the 20 for plowing, or sorry, for
For mowing.
mowing.
Yeah.
We're just not gonna mow?
No,
More mowing?
Scott and I will do the cistern.
Oh, like you're gonna.
You're gonna
bring
do
a
it
mower
physically?
20 grand's 20 grand.
and- Okay. Maybe we could get some of the people with sheep around town to like bring their sheep to the cistern.
Oh, that's not a bad
Or
idea.
the goats. Wait, is it the goats?
The
that he
goats,
uses?
yeah, the goats.
Maybe Cool could just bring his goat to the cistern.
I would buy goats.
You have to, if you have a power line, you used to be able to get Eversource to provide a fast
Oh, yeah.
converter and.
that was more for
So they don't die more?
There's no Eversource goats anymore?
They've electrocuted
They did away with the program.
Okay, so we're taking 20,000 out of parks and grounds maintenance.
Right,
You got it.
leaving it at 65.
Okay. And Karen's going to hire a goat. Got it.
Yeah, just ask that.
Highway and streets is already zeroed out. Solid waste administration.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with, I mean, I think this is a situation where like by, you know, we engender other costs, right, by like trying to, you know, so you wouldn't really get that.
Where are we at? What can we cut out Steve's? I heard that.
Anything else on the solid waste?
I don't think so.
No. Solid waste disposal?
No.
That seems like,
Those are all what they are.
They are what they are. Water distribution is gone, pest control is gone, government agencies and hospitals are gone.
Actually, can I ask a solid waste question? Sorry. Solid waste disposal for construction and demo is so far 0 this year that we just haven't done it yet? Or are we doing something different with that?
It all is on the same invoice, so we just pay it out of,
A different line?
yeah, the top line.
Oh, okay. So is that,
And then I adjusted it at the end of the year.
okay, never mind, then that's.
Like, I know how much is spent out of each one by the sheets I have to keep for DES,
Yeah,
but where Waste Management just sends us one invoice with all of it on it, it's just easier to pay it, and instead of trying to split it up.
that's fine, I just wanna make sure we weren't like not doing something with it,
No.
they could cut it.
The only possibility that you could cut out of that line would be the hazardous waste one, but then you wouldn't have household hazardous waste day anymore.
No, we need that, cause people have hazards.
That's,
And then they,
out
if we
of
don't
that
have it right,
line,
they do something stupid with
out
it.
of that line, that's really the only thing you could cut out of there.
Okay, no, thank you, Steve, I appreciate it.
Before you go, Steve, different side of the fence. I know that we get stuff that you could sell, right? I mean, we do have recyclables, I mean,
Yeah, for the, I just got the report, we're at 22,000 for the calendar year so far is what we made off recyclables.
which is, it doesn't come to you, it goes back to general fund, I understand, but it's important for people to know that it does generate funds.
We just sold aluminum cans for 82 cents a pound, which is probably the highest we've ever gotten for them.
Steve has discussed multiple times about whether we should consider a revolving fund
Yeah, if
for
you,
recycling.
I've thought about taking
Station.
all the money we take in fees, which is about 52,000 a year, and then the recyclables, and make a revolving fund that would pay for most of the lines in the solid waste. And then could possibly, if we make enough, pay for the deposit into the trust fund type thing.
So for, as far as like this budget document goes, like that, but, well, the 53 grand that we made last year selling number one plastic isn't reflected in this.
It's not here.
Yeah, it goes
back.
into the general.
Goes into the general fund.
Yep.
Right, so like, it's sort of like behind this in the sense that we're planning on some amount of money from that, and it influences what we budget for.
It influences how you set the tax rate.
Yeah.
When we get to October, you'll sit down and I'll show you what we've got in the general fund for unassigned fund balance, and you can use that amount to offset the tax rate if we've got a healthy
It
amount.
doesn't help until like the year after we get it.
It helps the, yeah, so it's bringing down the tax rate one way or another, right? Like revolving fund, is the advantage of the revolving fund basically that it would like stay within Steve's department?
Yes.
Okay.
And we
Yeah,
wouldn't, if
so-
it was a revolving fund, we wouldn't have to, like, we wouldn't need these line items and
You'd be
things that would
gone.
come in and out of the
And
revolving fund.
it would be visible. Department heads hate when they have revenue makers in their department that make revenue that just goes behind the scenes and nobody ever sees the good job they're doing.
I also feel if we were able to sell tin cans or aluminum cans, and then you can turn around and buy a skid steer with the aluminum can money, and you sold it as that, you might get more people to want to recycle if they can say, oh, look, my beer can paid for a skid steer, or paid for a new dumpster type thing. Like, it shows
We
it.
can put that on the TV though, like how much money.
It shows that their recycling's actually working for them and not just being hidden.
It's like
Yeah.
the guy who bought all that Pepsi and tried to trade him in for a fighter jet.
Oh, I sold it.
Yeah, I feel like that. Okay, yeah, so it seems like a, not a savings opportunity, more so an accounting
No,
method.
it's an important issue that people realize that what they're doing is recycling. It's a good education, just like the police department or the special duties, they could buy a police car.
Right, yeah,
Which I
so,
think is important.
I didn't know that before I joined the board, and I think it's a huge opportunity to communicate, I said to see each of the
It's
departments.
almost like we should be putting it into the crier all the time,
Yeah, what was it, like 350 grand from police details, 300 grand just from like interest on money market, and that doesn't even count what Mr. Tappan is, all that. That's important.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Water distribution, we talked about that, health, we already
The
did.
chief is coming on.
Let's see, welfare administration, I think we dealt with that. Direct assistance, maybe. You wanna play the game? You don't wanna play the game?
I think we're gonna
You
use
don't wanna
it.
go to Vegas, or you don't wanna go to Vegas?
Do you have some money for us? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, just piggybacking off what Steve was just talking about, we charge $15 for an accident report or an incident report. We do 300 accidents a year. I'm not sure how many arrest reports are requested, things like that, pistol permits. That all goes into the general fund.
You never see that.
We never, that's something else we never see, and that adds up
Mhm.
over time as well. And I remember reading in RSA somewhere where the pistol permit money anyway could be used to offset costs for the police department.
Pistol permit money is treated separately as revenue.
Yeah.
A lot of police departments use it as a pizza fund or that sort of thing instead of returning it.
I mean, you know,
Because
they changed the legislation, you don't need a pistol permit, so that's gone way down, but in the past, we were probably doing hundreds of them a year,
Yeah.
so.
Can't we tie it to the other revolving fund that you have?
Well, that's what I was thinking,
Yeah, somehow tie it.
something we can look at down the road.
Absolutely. No, I think we should take advantage of these things.
Okay.
General assistance, I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to cut that, because I think we're gonna need it.
Okay.
Things are not getting better for most people.
Yeah, if anything, some of these numbers are pretty low.
All right, we already, Parks and Rec is
Parks
already
and
done.
Recreations, yeah, we talked about that in library. Let's cut the heat out of the library.
No heat. It's already-
Not, I
it's
just
already-
wanna see if you paid attention.
It's already zeroed line, it's already zeroed out, don't worry.
being paid under buildings.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything there to cut either.
No,
We
somebody already
that,
cut
that.
patriotic.
Looks like something I would have.
Somebody already cut that, yeah. Heritage Nations, 1950th, we did conservation. I think we're down to the end,
I think we're down to the end. Does anybody have any other thoughts, maybe, about where we can
Cut the
find?
school.
Okay, I'm not in charge, okay, that's not the school
that's-
budget.
That's not,
We're
I'm
not
not in
deal with
charge
that
of the
budget.
school budget. I am not in charge of hiring the superintendent, okay.
okay, so that puts your cut, you've moved your cuts from 142, 614 to 173, 208.
Okay, that's almost halfway there. Do you need a motion to put that as the number on the warrant article?
I wanna, before we discuss it, I think like, just given the sort of, I would say like the media environment we're in, the attention environment we're in, you know, in town and everywhere, whatever we do, I'm gonna insist that we write a statement. I'm gonna ask, right, that we, as the three of us, write a statement from the three of us explaining precisely and in as much detail as possible exactly why we're doing what we're doing. You know, I think we have to protect the people of the town, the interests of the people of the town. Taxation is part of that, but it's not all of it, right? If half the police department walks out the door, then that's not protecting the people of the town, right? And we really gotta make that clear, make sure as many people as possible see that. You know, so I just wanna bring that up, right? Is that something you'd be willing to do?
Well, I think I definitely would willing, I'd like to add on to that as well, is that I think in the beginning, I said I didn't want to touch anything associated with the, you know, we had put the, you know, the COLA that was built into it. Not to touch anything, I don't want to touch the health aspects either, because I think that's important, is that all the compensation plans I've read in the past, and even where we are now with some of these things, all these departments struggle to hold on to people. We can't match with other towns out that have a lot more income streams. So the way we benefit a little bit is we have a little bit better health and, you know, health plans and so forth. So I don't want to touch those. But I'd like to be able to explain that at this point. And so I agree with you.
Okay. And then I think we need the budget. If we do not pass this the second time, we need to be able to show people what the default's going to be so they can make an informed decision.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
Yep. I have a preliminary skeleton that I can
Okay.
give you.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion then.
Hold on one
I think
second.
he's giving us the number.
Could we just hear those numbers again, please?
I think he's calculating them. Hold on.
Okay.
He's got his very fancy calculator out.
Laptop?
I would.
No, it's like it's like a.
I would do
it's like
this
a-
live
Whoa,
on the
that's a
accounting
big
software,
outfit.
but because it links back to my office, there's about a 20-second delay between each entrance you put in.
Oh, no.
Okay.
But, with 142,614 going to 173,208, the revised recommended budget would be 5,769,722. You could make a motion,
Can you say that one more time, Andy? 5,569,000?
5,769,722. Is that-
That doesn't sound right.
Well, you were at 5,942,930.
Okay.
And so I'll do it over again. 5,942,930 minus 173,208.
Wait, we haven't made an additional 173. It's 173 from the original. Right. You
Right.
get- So.
Yeah, I'm getting 5,912,337.
Thank you. That sounds right. Like you've double subtracted things. But if you're telling me it's 173, 208.
Right, no, you're correct, Matt.
Give us that number again, please.
We're working on it. Hold on, let's make sure it's right.
5,912,337 is what we've calculated.
5912337.
Right, and that's the 6,085,545 minus the 173,208.
What's the difference between that and default?
Hold on, the default is 5,686,
It's
so,
gonna be about 230, give or take.
yeah, 5,912,337 minus 5,686, 521, 225,816.
What is it?
So if someone would move the 5,912,337 figure?
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Matt?
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, thank you.
Okay, now if you can give me a second, you also need to approve the prospective estimated tax rate impact.
Okay, do we have that?
I
Pull
have,
up the spreadsheet.
I have Mr. Tappan's calculator here,
Thank you.
which if it will load,
Okay.
then I can, where is the operating budget? Have it that, and I've been playing around with it, but 2,337. It gives us an estimated tax rate of 524.
But that's not what we're using.
Pardon?
But that's not what we're using.
That's not right.
Well, that's not what we're putting in.
Yeah, I have to put,
No, we're using this.
I have to use that amount first. I can put the difference between that and the requested budget, or the difference between that and the default budget in sense with it, but I have to list the per 1,000 too.
Okay, but it's not 5,024 per thousand.
This is the number you have to adopt, the 5.24. That's the base number. And we can also publish the difference between the two.
Difference is 30 cents.
So, number in
John, just say
here.
30 cents
Which is not
That's the
confusing.
difference.
from 53.
It's 524 over the default, works out to 494.
It was 53, right? That's good.
Previously.
So help me understand what I'm looking at, Andy. So in cell Q10, minus 30 cents, is that minus 30 cents relative to the 52-cent increase that would have been the case if the proposed budget
No,
had
I
passed?
think it's the default versus the,
Versus the default. The default was $4.94.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, so it's a 30-cent increase per
From
thousand.
50, and
It's
it
an
was
esti-
53.
It's an estimated 30-cent increase, and I want to be clear that for the last 2 years, the estimated tax impacts we generated have been about $1 over, and the reval is going to knock the snot out of the tax rate.
well,
It's up.
No, that can be an explanatory note, it has to be that.
All right, so a home assessed at $450,000, that's about $11 a month. $750,000, it's about $19 a month. So that's probably a pretty good range for,
I think this is a good starting point in the sense of that we really went through the budget and cut out lots of stuff, even though it might look like minutia to people, it's important things. But if this doesn't go, and we have to go deeper, then you gotta start looking at.
Sign that.
so with respect to the statement I proposed, what is the process for that? Should I draft it and then bring it to a meeting, or is that something that we can work on between meetings? Do we have to basically write it in public session?
No, you don't have to write a public session.
Okay,
You can draft it between us at this point, and we can,
and then bring it back
Bring it
and
back.
discuss it. Okay.
that's correct.
You can, as long as you adopt it in public session,
Okay.
present it and adopt it.
And then it'd be, the draft would be linked up in the agenda and so forth. Yeah. And
So
so,
work on the draft, and you can send it between us, we can clean it up when we get to the public meeting, then we can move it forward.
all right, and when is our next meeting? It's gonna be the 27th, yeah. Okay,
school vacation.
yeah, that's super unfortunate. Oh my God.
When is the delivery session?
May 9th.
May 9th is the deliberative, and June 9th is the election.
So we're trying to get a voter's guide out.
Yep.
And we'll do a voter's guide, it'll be 1 page.
Okay. I love brevity. It's great.
Oh, with one warrant article, it's,
Yeah.
Forever.
I mean, unless you choose to add lengthy narrative to it.
I think it could be very straightforward. Anything else on the board? Daniel?
Nope.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries, thank you. Thank you for coming, we appreciate it.
We started at Joe Ford, I don't know if you've been down there.
So what would the
Sorry, I was late.
So the
Mowing.
estimated increase,
Tuesday we had the edges back to the woodline.
if the estimated, it's an estimate. If I have a total budget passes, it's an estimated increase of $30,000.
We all talked about it, and. No, I know, we were in there the other day, Tom Lee wanted us to, but we started mowing back the other day. The telephone pole in the middle's done. And then, surprise. That's done.
The default budget is